We continue to follow breaking news. We are looking at video just in of Felicity Huffman leaving court after being sentenced to 14 days behind bars. This is for her role in the college admissions scandal. Huffman will also pay a $30,000 fine and spend 250 hours of community service. So what does this mean for the other parents indicted in the scandal, especially the ones who pleaded not guilty? Joining me to talk about this is attorney and legal analyst Steve Meister. This is a day that we've all been watching as far as this cheating scandal goes. First, are you surprised?
I'm surprised that she got as little time as she did. I think that she had more coming, but I think that 2 weeks versus the month that the government was asking for is ultimately reasonable under the circumstances. She's going to have to be away from her family. She's going to get locked up. She's going to be in jail. She's not going to like it. And for a person like her, it's going to be a heavy price.
Wait, so is she really going to spend time in prison? Because I think some people are going to go, oh yeah, right, she'll never actually see it, no?
No, she's going to see the inside of a federal jail for a couple of weeks, just like the judge said she would. Wow,
okay, so did her pleading guilty help her?
I mean, it's easy to look back and say yeah, but I think at the front end it did too. So ultimately, yes. She was in a lot of trouble. Her reputation was in tatters and she'd hurt her family. She came out early as a person of conscience to say, I'm not going to play any games. I did this. I feel terrible about it. I hurt a lot of people and I committed a crime and I'm guilty. She also pled guilty to save her husband from being indicted because he was in on those phone calls. He was listening in. And even though she took the laboring oar and she was the sort of the ringleader in the family about this, he could have been indicted too, or at least threatened with it. And the feds left him alone because they got her.
Had she pled not guilty, you think he would have gotten wrapped up in it?
I think there's a good chance.
So the others, like Lori Loughlin, pled not guilty. So what is their future looking based on what we saw here?
Well, every case is different and every defendant's different because every set of facts is different. Felicity Huffman did something serious. She paid $15,000 to pay somebody to goose her kids' SAT scores.
Right.
And in doing so, she played a part in deceiving any college her kid would apply to, and she risked depriving a kid who played by the rules of a spot at that same school. Those things are wrong. They're hurtful, and they ripple out to the society, and they hurt all of us. Lori Loughlin and her husband undertook a concerted campaign of faking a complete identity for their kids, and they paid over $500,000, and they did it over and over and over and over and over again. So theirs wasn't a one-off. Theirs wasn't some sort of impulsive type of thing, and there wasn't any sort of wringing of the hands of conscience in their case. It seems like they were eager to do it and sad to get caught. So if they get convicted, I think they should expect to be locked up for a good amount of time.
So in both Huffman and Loughlin's case, the allegations are that they either made up this profile for their kids in the case of the Loughlins, or paid to get their SAT scores doctored. But the difference in the way they are both approaching it is very stark. Huffman has said she's guilty. She thought she was being a good mom and realizes now that it's ironic what she was doing, whereas Loughlin, completely different approach. How much does it matter how they play their cards?
It matters a lot, because the judge who eventually hears a Lori Loughlin Massimo trial, if there is one, or who, if they plead guilty, who hears their sentencing hearing and imposes a sentence, is going to remember that this was the lady who was mugging for the cameras when she first showed up to court, treating it like a big joke and a chance to boost her PR profile. And that is the wrong impression to make on a judge. And the sort of the almost gleefulness with which Loughlin and her husband seemed to have pursued this terrible scheme, this completely fraudulent scheme, with seemingly A, no regard for how their own kids would take it, and B, no regard for anybody else who they might be hurting or defrauding. That's going to make a big difference if they ever get convicted or if they're ever facing sentencing after a plea.
Does the money amount matter? In their case, it's $250,000, right? The allegations. In the case of Huffman, she spent $15,000. Does that matter to a judge?
I don't know if it's going to matter to the judge. I think it will matter to the judge because they and U.S. probation and the government have to have some sort of uniform criteria by which to try to evaluate people so that they don't create disparity in sentencing among similarly situated defendants. In other words, in plain English, they have to try to use the same set of criteria to treat people who've done roughly equal things as equally as they can. But to me, the money isn't the most important factor. The probation department back east said, there's no victims here. It's like, no, there are. The victims are people who played by the rules and didn't get in. The victims are people who trusted the system and whose faith has been tested. The victims are people who were already cynical and who now have no reason to be less cynical. The victim is our entire society and the values we live by and the trust we have to have in one another. Those things are intangible, but they matter a heck of a lot.
All right, Steve. Well, there will be more of these to come. We appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, more of your